Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the virtual Thursday for today, 2021-6. James Andrett, one of the regional trainers here at Emergency Reporting. This is going to be part two of our...
James, let me interrupt you. You're showing your presenter screen, not your display screen.
Stand by. Flip. How about now, Mark?
Perfect.
Make one more adjustment here. Sorry, folks. Apologize. Okay. I apologize for that. This is part two of the system administrator training, where we're going to be going over some of your best practices and your common errors. This is kind of a follow-up to what we did before, getting you guys in here and kind of working with the administrators to create kind of your local subject matter experts, if you will, for you guys' department. Like I said, I'm James Andrett. With me today, I have Mark Wolf, our lead international trainer, Tom Lewis, our enterprise training manager, Greg Simmons, Michael Fabian, and Mike Reynolds, all regional trainers as well. They'll be in the background. They'll be answering questions. If you have questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat. These guys will take care of you as we're going through. Every now and again, I'll pause and ask them if there's anything we need to address as we go through. And there are a couple of handouts, this PowerPoint presentation, as well as another document with some helpful articles in there that you guys can go in and access and keep for yourselves for your records for moving forward. Before we begin, let's talk about some of our training opportunities. Our virtual Thursdays on the first Thursday of the month, 11 o'clock Pacific, 2 o'clock Eastern time. We do offer online training. You can get 3-hour blocks of training. We can customize that, whatever areas that you'd like to go over in that. The on-site trainings are still kind of on hold for now. We're hopefully looking at some of these opportunities can start freeing up as things start to die down on the pandemic front. And we do offer regional training academies. Before I go into those, I want to go over the online training academies that we're having here. The ER Basics, that's for folks just starting out, getting information. And then the ER Pro, that's for some folks like you guys that have been using the system for a while. You guys can come in, you can sign up here, you can receive the session training that we're having, and then we even offer some one-on-one training with that as well. Now, I am extremely happy to announce to you guys that we have been given a green light. We have been cleared to host our first on-site regional training academy. That will be in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, from June 8th to 10th. Look for that. The registrations and the marketing materials will be heading out to you guys soon. If you guys can, please join us there. It'll be nice to see people in person again versus training online. Some of the other training academies that are tentatively scheduled for the rest of the year, we have Charlotte, North Carolina in August, Jacksonville, Florida in September, and Austin, Texas in October. Hopefully those go off without a hitch as well. As always, you can go to emergencyreporting.com, go into the Customer Success Center and look up any kind of training needs that you guys may have and see what we have. So today we're with the administrator training, we're going to kind of focus on some of the things that are common setup errors that we see and also what we call best practice. Now, when I'm giving training and I mention the terms best practice, usually when we say that, what we're talking about is it lays out well, it flows well, it's got a good setup to get data out of it. We do understand that everybody kind of has their own uniqueness to their organizations. There's some things that you may do a little bit different. When we give you these best practices, it's just kind of a standard to go by, and you guys can break it down and customize it any way that you want. Now, one of the things that we commonly get asked, especially with our newer customers, is, and folks, I apologize for my voice. It's been struggling all week due to a cold. When we're setting up our account, what order should we go in? How should we go about? It's a very overwhelming task when you're the system administrator and you're tasked with getting things up and running. When you do that, number one, you got to gain access. So when you get your account, everything gets finalized. They send you that. You're able to sign into your account. What you want to do is you want to start adding your admins. We talked about it in the last session. Maybe one for every 10 members, right? One for every shift, one for every station, admin personnel, operations personnel, all those things that we talked about in the last training. For all the admins that you're going to have, depending on your size, go ahead and get your admin set up, and then come in and start setting up your roles and permissions. When you're setting these things up, this is always going to be a work in progress. You may be 30, 60, 90 days getting these things fully set up to where you want. When you go in and you start setting up the roles, and you can have as many as you need, when you start setting up those roles, you can play with them. Give them to the folks, let them get into the system, let them try a few things. They might come back to you and say, hey, I should have access to this, but I don't, right? So you're going to make some adjustments on the fly, but have a discussion, talk amongst the group of admins. Okay, what do we want our folks doing? Are we making sure that we're getting them the accesses that they need in order to do that? Go ahead and add your apparatus. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in depth here in a little bit when we go in there, but add all of your apparatus to your account. Complete all the imports. Now, whether you're importing yourself or whether you're having implementation do that for you, you can import your incidents, your hydrant data flow, and your equipment. You can do that on your own, setting it up into your own account. Now, when you're setting up the settings in the individual modules, occupancy, trainings, hydrants, and if you're a Nemsys account, your EMS settings, have those set up as you're going through. Go into the admin module to your drop-down box, set up your ranks, shifts, divisions, zones, and your master street list. And then if you're using the payroll feature, make sure you set up your pay grades so that you can capture the information, whether it's training, incident, event-based that you're looking to pay out on. Make sure you have the pay grades that you're using for that. Set up your daily log activity codes that you can use to kind of capture everything that's really not per se in those modules, but you still want to record that information. Get yourself a robust list of activity codes for that, and then set up the ones that you want as default so that when you do complete that in one of the modules, it's automatically going to go in your logbook for you. Then you can come in, you can add your personnel, send out the invites. You can send out those invites in bulk, or you can send those out one at a time. One of the things when you're adding your personnel, I'm going to jump over to the account here for a second. Make sure that when you come into your personnel, you're making sure that as you're entering them and as you're adding them in there, make sure they have an email address, okay? Because email address helps you in a couple different areas. The big three here is, number one, and what we're talking about right here, is you can send out a bulk invite to many people at a time, okay? So if they have that email address, that gives you the capability, and I'll show you in just a second how that goes about. The second one is in your maintenance module. You can come in here and you can assign some sort of a task, whether work order, whether it's an inspection, a minor repair, something like that. You can assign it to them and email them a notice about that. And you can also mark incident reports. If you're QAing them, you can mark them incomplete, and you can have that notification sent to them saying you did that. But if you have that email address in here, what I'm talking about right now is you can come into your personnel grid, and up here you'll see the bulk invite personnel. Now, when you do that, you're going to come in and you can see anybody that has email addresses here, how many ever folks you want to invite, just come in, select them as you're going, okay? And then once you do, you can send out that invite all the time. Now, please keep in mind that it does have a time limit to that invite. So try to work in chunks, whether it's a shift that's working or folks that you have there on a drill night or anything like that. Try to work within parameters that you're going to be able to sit with these people, get them signed in, take care of them. If you send it out to everybody in the department and they're a week, 2 weeks before they can get back to you, those invites are going to expire on you and then you're going to have to send new ones out, okay? So just keep that in mind as you're going. Okay. Now, the next thing that we want to talk about is set up focused training sessions. So you guys have a good handle of the data that you need out of this, right? And really, sometimes we talk about that and we don't really go in depth like we should on that. Knowing the data that you want from this system is going to allow you to look at the things that you have to set up properly in order to get that data. And one of the things I always tell new customers especially is do a trial run. Don't wait 6 months or a year to figure out if you have everything set up right. Give it a couple weeks to a month. Start pulling some of the reports that you think are going to work for you and make sure that information is coming in. Then if you have to make any tweaks to it, maybe come in at the 3-month point, check it again, look at that 6-month point. Don't let a lot of data build up over a period of time to where you're going back and making a ton of corrections. So spot check that every now and again as you're doing that so that you know how much information that you want out. Now, in setting up those focus trainings, get your personnel together. No, maybe a fire marshal's office, maybe the shift personnel, maybe the training division that you're looking at. Target each one of these groups so that you can come in to their specific areas. You can sit down with them and you can get their training lined up to get them started. And then the last thing that you guys want to do when you're setting up that account, set a go live date, right? Give yourselves a hard, fast, hey, we need to have these things done by this, right? As you're assigning tasks out to people, maybe make it their deadlines a week, week and a half, 2 weeks before the go live date. So that allows you to address any errors that you need to at the end. But then you guys set that go live date, you guys can take off from there. So we talked a little bit ago about setting up the roles and permissions in here. Okay, so when you guys come in, and I've got a pretty decent roles and permissions list built out. And I think we hit on this last time where we talked about you can have as much as you want. Your admins, you can do it role-based, you can do it rank-based, you can do the different things that people have oversight on. If you have a maintenance guy, maybe a fleet mechanic, something like that, you can come in here, set up a login just for them. If you have somebody that, a regular firefighter, but they handle your SCBAs or something like that, set up a role giving them additional maintenance responsibility. Anytime you're creating one of these roles, come in here, leave yourself a memory jogger, right? For those of you that have existing accounts, maybe they date back a little bit, you may see these auto-generated roles in here. My suggestion to you on that is come in here, look, see, figure out exactly what that is, and rename it, or come in here, create things using the templates, and then move your personnel into so you know what you're looking at versus trying to sort through a bunch of auto-generated roles as well. So that's going to help you out. Now, one of the things that I want to focus on with you guys is this one right here, because we do see this quite a bit. One of the things that you want to do, anybody that's going to be doing incident reports, right? And that could be a number of different ranks. That could be a number of different people that's going to work for you, whether they're captains, lieutenants, maybe step up firefighters, things like that. One of the things that we commonly see happen is we'll maybe get a support ticket in here and somebody will say, my personnel are doing an incident report. When they go to hit next or they go to hit save, after putting in their narrative, something like that, they hit next and all the information disappears. It's no longer there, okay? Just know that if you encounter that, the first thing that you guys want to do is you want to come in here, you want to find out what role they're associated with, you want to open up that role, okay? You want to come into the permissions, go to the incident module, and make sure when you're looking at these that these 3 items right here are set to full access. That will solve that issue that you're having. Once you set that on there, then you'll be good to go, okay? And, there's a nice highlight for it. Again, you can reference this back. This PowerPoint's going to be in the handout section. You guys can come in and take a look at it as you go, okay? Another thing that we commonly see, and this is fairly new, so some folks don't even necessarily know about this yet. The process now for anybody from support being able to help you, or any of us from training being able to come in and teach from your account that we're looking at, is you have to grant access to folks into your account, okay? We can no longer access for security reasons. We can no longer access the accounts the way we used to. So in your accounts, the primary administrator is designated, they can do this anytime, but any other admin should be able to do that. And to do so, when you come into this admin module right here, you want to come in, go to the permissions again, open up admin, come all the way down to the bottom, and this very last one here that we're looking at, make sure that's set to full access so that every single admin on the account can come in. And when you see this right here, you want to sign in, you want to see that, that's whoever's requesting access, right? And then you're just going to want to grant them access for whatever time frame. If you start out with a small issue, they might only access it for 24 hours. It may turn into a bigger issue and they may need to send you another one. Maybe you accept it for a week, something like that, so that we can go back and forth with you guys and get things worked out. But make sure all your admins have the capability to come in here and do that, okay? Now, this is a big ticket item that we see a ton, okay? when you're looking right here, and you're adding your apparatus, please remember that all maintenance records attach to this vehicle number right here. The most common mistake that we see is folks will come in here, they will give a vehicle an ID number, which is normally like a radio designation, right? They'll come in here, they'll do that, and then they'll label the vehicle number the exact same one, okay? Make sure that that vehicle number is something that is unique and specific to that vehicle and is never going to change from that vehicle, okay? One of the reasons for this, if I come in here and I name this 1251, right, and we have this pumper for, let's say, 10 years. 10 years worth of maintenance records are going to attach to 1251. Now, I go out, I buy myself a new engine, I put it in here as 1251, I move this piece down to maybe 1253, okay? When that happens, if we have these named the same, 1251 is going to inherit 10 years worth of the old vehicle's records because it remains 1251. 1251 goes down here to 1253 and they inherit 1253's records, okay? Having that unique specific vehicle number, no matter where I name this engine company over here, if I move it down into the fleet to any other vehicle I have, as long as it carries with it this designation right here, okay, that is going to allow the maintenance records to move with it wherever it goes, okay? So when you guys come in here and you're setting up this apparatus, okay, and we'll pull one up specifically to look here. The apparatus ID can be anything you want it to be, right? The apparatus name can be anything you want it to be, okay? The call sign, maybe what your radio is. This is the vehicle number. This is what's going to generate that, okay? That's where you want to have that unique specific. You know, lots of different ways to do that. Where I retired from, we used the work order number from the manufacturer on all of our heavy apparatus. That's what we use because it's always going to be referenced for that vehicle only, okay? Some folks ask the question, well, can I use maybe the year and make of the fire truck? Well, if you only have one 2019 Pierce Arrow, if you only have one of those, sure, because then that's always going to be specific. But if you ever pick up another 2019 Pierce Arrow, you're going to have to adjust that, right? Or if you have twin apparatus where you're buying multiple ones at a time, you're not going to be able to use that. You're going to have something that's unique to that as you're going through. Okay? And then another thing that we're looking at right here, a lot of folks will hit us up and say, hey, my apparatus is showing up red, right? So when you come in here and you might look at your apparatus list and you come over to your maintenance module over here and you see the apparatus that's assigned to you, they might be showing up over here as red, okay? Now, it may be like in this case right here where it has a work order assigned to it, okay? But if the vehicle is never properly placed in service from the apparatus screen, it's going to stay red in here as well, right? So if we look at this vehicle right here, if I come back to my admin module and go to the apparatus screen, okay? When I come in here, what's going to dictate that for me is if I come into this right here, right? If I mark this vehicle in service, it's done right here. You know, just like you're seeing on this slide right here, you want to have this in service selected right there. Another common mistake that we see is on the apparatus ownership. By selecting that apparatus ownership as not a department unit, it's going to keep it out of your maintenance module, and it's going to keep it off your rig checklist. Now, in a lot of cases, a lot of volunteer organizations, they might have a POV listed here, okay? Somebody might have the chief's, you know, personal vehicle as an apparatus in there. By listing that in the not department unit on that apparatus screen, it's going to allow you that when you come in here and you go to that maintenance module, number one, you're not going to see that POV listed on this apparatus right here, right? So you're not going to pick that up on there. Number two, when you come into your rig check area over here, you're not going to see, you're only going to see the vehicles that belong to the department, and they'll be the only ones there, right? So you won't see POV listed down in here somewhere, okay? So those are two common mistakes that we see regarding apparatus. Now, switching gears a little bit, let's talk about when you're going into the modules and you're setting these up, okay? Looking over here, and we'll take a peek into, let's start with the hydrant module, okay? Inside of the hydrant module, the occupancy module, and the training module, there are settings that you need to set up, okay? And in a nutshell, you are really either giving yourself choices to use or answers to questions that you're asking, really, okay? So for example, hydrants, when you come in here, this is where you're going to come in and you're going to set up the things like your water districts, right? You're going to look at the things like, these are my maintenance types that I can assign. These are the maintenance intervals, right? Maybe it's an annual, maybe it's a semi-annual, things like that. These are the manufacturers and models of the hydrants that we have within our jurisdiction. This is who owns those, okay? Service responsibilities, types, okay? There's quite a bit of information that you can gather from there. Setting up your zones, right? All that information needs to be set up in the settings so that when you come in here and you start doing specific tasks to the hydrants, all that stuff's built out and available for you. Same thing as when you're looking in the occupancy module, and the occupancy module is huge for this. I could sit here, I could give you at least an hour-long training on just setting these up, okay? Just know in a nutshell, looking at the big picture view right here, when you come in here to each one of these categories, and you're gonna wanna touch every single one of them, you wanna come in here and you wanna set up these things. You know, who am I getting a hold of? What are my occupancy contact types I'm looking at right here? Setting up my zones, right? Different types of construction items, different occupancy action codes so I can record the interactions I'm having, right? Occupancy categories, field settings, things you're making available to you. And then down here, setting up your inspection forms and your permit forms, right? The forms you'll be using, the results you're going to give inspections, what kind of inspections you're doing, how you're going to answer the observations, right? And then if you want to capture times, this will give you an email default message. And then this is where you can work with your fire inspection codes if you've imported them. And the same thing over here in training. When you come in here, you're going to jump into these settings over here. These are areas where you can come in and set up your class categories, your training code categories, and training codes. Now, for some of y'all, the state might dictate what you have for your training codes, right? This is where you're going to come in and build those so you can match them, okay? When you look at this, the biggest picture, you know, the fewest number, this is where you begin to break them down, and then these are the classes themselves. Any location that you train at regularly, have it. Any resources that you have that you own, maybe a pumper, maybe a simulator, maybe a door prop, maybe something along those lines that you're using for training, list them on your resources so that when you're doing your training records, you can capture all this information. Everybody understands a task sheet, right? So if you've ever taken an EMT class where it says you got to do this, 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 if you're signing off a driver, it says, okay, you got to do a pre-trip, right? You got to inspect the vehicle. You know, you got to come in, you got to set up all your seatbelt, all that stuff. That's a task sheet that you're looking. You can build those task sheet categories out and add those task sheets to it, right? Here's your general settings that you're looking at, where you're coming in and how you're going to track certain items. And then the standards that you train against, whether that's the ISO standards or whether that's the NFPA standards, whatever standards that you're training against, you can come in here and you can list them. And when you do, on the training report, you can list, hey, we trained against, you know, NFPA 1001, right? Or any of the other ones. Now, I have a pretty extensive list in here. That's why it's taking a couple of seconds to load. But just know that in those three modules, you have to come in and you have to address these settings so that you make sure you're capturing, right? And you can get hemmed up in a lot of different ways. You know, occupancy, a big one I can think of here is when you come in and set these settings, when you're setting a form up, there's something where you have to go in there and you have to set that up for your inspection types, where if you want to require a follow-up inspection, there's a box you have to push and it will force you to make a follow-up inspection if something, you know, maybe if they answered it, it's a violation issue, okay? So coming in here and being familiar with these settings, especially as the admins, right? Because you guys are going in, you're making that stuff in the background, you're making everything that's available for these guys to make it work, okay? Now, for those of you that have CAD pushes coming into your account, okay? Common question we get is, you know, I get the CAD push, I get the incident, but it's really not giving me a lot of information. Now, first and foremost, please understand this. The number one thing that you are handicapped with is you can only include things that your CAD will send, right? So if you're a CAD provider, whoever that may be, if they don't send these things, right, then you're just not going to get them. You're going to have to manually select them. Anything that you see on this list that we're looking at right here, okay, anything you see in there, if your CAD vendor can push that information, you got to come in here and do what we call mapping, okay? And when you start mapping this out, all you're really doing is telling it, okay, this is what CAD has, this is what we're calling it, so that when CAD shoves that into the system, it knows where to go, right? Because the old adage, computers don't have common sense, right? It's not going to look for or think about where it should go. It's only going to go where you tell it to go, right? So when you come in here, here's a good example of setting up apparatus mapping. When you open up that tab for apparatus mapping, these are the codes that maybe CAD is sending to you, right? So this is what they're recognizing Engine 1 as. On emergency reporting, you refer to it as 1251. So if you draw that link between those two items, that when E1 hits the account, it knows to go right in and populate 1251, okay? That's a good look at how you guys can set up your CAD apparatus mapping. Another version here, and this is, you know, depending, again, 911 center, your CAD provider, whatever codes they're pumping these calls out as, right? So maybe this is an EMS bleeding or a cardiac or something along these lines, right? You guys need to take these codes that CAD's generating, and you need to put the applicable NFIRS code to match that up. So, you know, if the dispatcher presses that button and they hit structure fire, you know that when it hits, it's going to populate the 111 incident type. Okay, so that's going to make that go seamlessly. And the more of this mapping you do, the less you're going to have to manually enter when you're doing your incident reports. Okay. Now, guys, real quick break to see if there's any questions or anything we need to go over before we start tackling some of the drop-down items.
Hey,
Okay.
James, I'm researching a question from Ruth about the ability to unarchive occupancies. Ruth, I will get back with you. If not during this presentation, I'll shoot you an email.
Okay. All right. So some of the areas and some of the things, when I mentioned the word drop downs, okay, when you come into your admin module over here, you're going to see this list of drop downs right here. Okay. Now, each one of these is kind of important in its own right for what you're doing. Okay. Your agency friends, if you have your agency friends set up, okay, we'll talk about this in just a second on how to get those set up. For anybody that doesn't fall into the category of an agency friend, your neighboring agencies list is going to capture them. Okay. Anybody that you are running calls with, right? Whether that's a police department, whether that's a fire department, EMS agency, come in here and list them so that when you get to basic info 5, right, when you get there and you've already selected that this is a mutual aid given, you can select who you gave. Or if it's your incident, you can select who was there helping you, okay? You're going to see right here that this is a format we choose to list this as. And one of the reasons is from here over, it's not visible to you on the incident report. From here to the left is visible to you on the incident report. Take that FDID number. Yes, you have to put it in the FDID box, right? But take it, put it in parentheses, put a dash, and then put the FDID number. However you want to signify that, just make sure next to the name you're putting the FDID number, and then that'll help you as you go, okay? And I'll show you that a little bit later because I want to pop into an incident and show you what that looks like. Now, setting up your stations, right? Come in here, put the informations for your stations, right? Get all the information in there. This allows you to assign people to a station. Having your shifts, this allows you to assign people to a specific shift. Now, I have a ridiculous amount in here from testing and people that I train with, setting up stuff for them, okay? But come in here, set these shifts up, and that allows you. Setting the actual shift of who's working, that relies over in the staffing module, right? Or the shifts module. But setting this up allows you to assign people to those shifts. Having your ranks, just come in here. Ranks and divisions are very similar in the sense that you just make this who you are. Mirror your organization. You can come in and add any rank you want to, right? Sometimes you may see if you have imported incidents, you may see if you pulled it in from another system, it may have AC and assistant chief, okay? Some of that's populated from the import that you guys have coming in. Just come in, change or remove whichever one you don't want, right? And then just make sure that your personnel have the proper one assigned to as you're going. Same with divisions, you make that whatever you want, right? Now, your master street list. In your master street list, a couple different things I want to talk about. Number one, the key to any data. If you're looking to get data out of this system, one of the things that you want is consistent data. If you do not have a CAD push coming in, a master street list is pivotal to you. Maybe you get that from your emergency management coordinator. Maybe you get that from your highway department. Maybe you get that from public works. Maybe you get it from the police or the 911 center, okay? But if you can get your hands on a master street list, you can come in here. The template is right here, right? You can come in, you can grab that template. This is something that you can upload yourselves, right? And when you open that up, these are just the NFIRS requirements that you're looking at, okay? Come in here. If it has a prefix or a suffix, add it. If it doesn't, leave it blank, okay? Come in, add the information, save it, bring it back over here, upload it right in here, and you guys are good to go, okay? Now, you'll notice here that I put a couple things on here. If you have a street that runs through multiple zip codes, put an entry for each zip code that it covers, okay? And that way, that allows you, when you're in Basic Incident 3, you begin typing that, right? And when you start typing that in there, and I get to MAI, it's going to come up and say Main Street, and then you select the street, and it'll pull it through, right? And I can tell you from experience, right? In the past, we had an incident where we had to have some of the other county agencies come in for somebody that was a little bit of a frequent flyer and there were some other issues going on. Well, the first question they asked me was, how many times have you run here? Okay. Well, when I went to pull the report, I had so many different variations of that street name that I had to sit there and start compiling that. Whereas if the folks would have used the master street list, I would have had good, consistent data every single time with that, right? Because just think to yourself, if you line up 12 firefighters and you ask all 12 of them to type in Main Street, how many different combinations can you get, right? One might be all lowercase, one might be all uppercase, one might be misspelled, right? Think of all the different variations, but at the end of the day, you're looking for clean, consistent data. That's where your master street's going to come in and it's going to help you, okay? There are other benefits, especially if you are a NEMSIS account for EMS and you have to use city and county code and your state may be a little outdated in that. There are other uses for that as well, okay? Now, your business list, folks, anybody that you do business with, if they sell you gear, tools, power equipment, or apparatus, or if they work on any one of those things I just mentioned, make sure they're in this vendor list. When you add them in this vendor list, come in here, the most pivotal thing you're going to do is list them as a vendor. If you have an email address for your contact there, put that email address in here, okay? Because when you're in that maintenance module and you're generating work orders on, whether it's getting your gear repaired or whether it's getting your apparatus repaired, anything like that, when you're doing that, you have the ability to assign it to this vendor. You can generate an email at the end to say, hey, I have 10 sets of gear that need cleaned. Can you call me at such and such to arrange for pickup, right? Make sure they're on this vendor list. The other nice area where this will help you out is when you come in here and you set up this vendor list like this, when you're adding equipment, you can list, okay, this is where I bought it, right? So if you have 3 or 6 or 8 different portable generators and you need parts for those, if you've taken the time to add the vendor that you bought it from the vendor list, you can go back to them, right? That's where you can get parts. If it's something that falls under warranty work, you know who you bought it from, so you know who to take it back to, okay? That's what your vendor list is going to give you in these things. Your pre-filled default codes here, if you guys go in and you start customizing, let's say your daily log activity codes, right? Or you come in here and you change your ranks and you're like, oh man, like I seriously screwed that up, right? How do I fix that? Well, one of the things you can do in this case is you can come in here, you can look at what was originally in the account, okay? And then when you come over here, you can select this, hit insert. It's going to pull back those originals and it kind of hits the reset button and you can start again, right? So then you can go and make any other changes you want and hopefully not make the same mistake that got you there in the first place, okay? Now, one of the most important things I want to talk about here is I want to talk about your zone lists. Okay, zone lists are critical for setting up pulling data. When you look at a zone, I want you to think for a second about geographic area. You know, here in Pennsylvania, like we're kind of ridiculous with it, right? We have boroughs, we have townships, we have cities, we have counties, right? If you look at those geographical regions in there, I can maybe set up, if I have 3 different boroughs I cover, I can set up each borough as a zone, right? If you look at, you know, where I retired from, the county that we mutual aid with, they had 10 different stations areas, and in each one of those stations, first 2 areas, each one of them had anywhere from 8 to 13 boxes. We had every single box assignment set up as a zone. Having a zone list set up allows you to track. I can tell you, maybe at the end of the year or whatnot, I can tell you how many calls you ran into that zone, okay? There's 3 reports listed right here that'll pull up how many times you ran into a specific zone. Well, what were the call types, right? How many structured fires did I run? How many medical assists did I run? How many fire alarms did I run? You can come in here. Here's 2 examples of calls you can run, or information you can pull about the call types you ran in a zone, okay? Well, what are the times of days? Here's one that'll tell you, right? What times of the day, what days of the week, okay? What was my average response time, right? How long did it take me to get there? If I even listed my mutual aid partners as a zone, right? Like mutual aid Smithtown, mutual aid, you know, Maintown, whatever, you know, whatever example you want to give there. I can tell you that, okay, well, we've given mutual aid to Smithtown 57 times this year. When we're going there for EMS calls, right? When are we generally going? Are we going during the day, right? Now, I want you to think about being able to have all this data, and then I want you to be able to think about sitting down at a table. You know, another thing that would, you know, the volunteer service is struggling, right? Here in Pennsylvania, our numbers compared to what they were to maybe in the 70s or 80s are down so incredibly far, it's critical, right? We're getting to that critical phase in here. You're seeing a lot of departments do mergers. Well, if you and 4 other departments are sitting down looking at 3 different boards that have jurisdiction over you, right? And we're going to decide who breaks up the funding and who gets what to help make this thing work. Well, who do you think is going to get the most that they want if they have the best data, right? Having these zones are going to give you this information to be able to pull that data to say, this is how many times we're going here. These are the calls we're running here. These are the times of day, things like that, right? And again, this is in the handout, so you guys can come in, you can reference, you can take a look at these reports. If this is something that you guys need, come in, check it out, and go from there, okay? Now, under this agency friends, I want to talk about for a second. Depending on what state you are in, agency friends will help you out in 2 distinct ways. It helps you for folks that you're running calls with, and it helps you to be able to share inspection forms, and only inspection forms, from the occupancy module, okay? There's 3 criteria to setting up agency friends. Number 1, they have to be an emergency reporting customer. Number 2, they have to reside within your state. And number 3, this has to be set up on both sides. You have to set it up, they have to set it up. Once that link's created, you guys can begin sharing information. When you want to add somebody, you come in, what you're going to do is you're going to come in to add that agency, put their name in here, either their FD or their EMS ID in here, put down their state, and then you're going to begin selecting what you want them to have access to, okay? Occupancy is the one that gives you forms. The others is going to tie together incident data, okay? Now, common mistake, common question we hear. I don't want to give them access to my personnel. You are not giving them access to your personnel grid. You are only giving them access to the personnel that were on the incidents, okay? And on top of that, look here, they can't come in and manipulate any of your data because this is read-only access. And we talked about that last time, where if you only have read-only, you can see it. There's nothing you can do with it, okay? But please understand, this does not give them access to your personnel grid. It's only the people that were on the calls. Now, when they come in and they give you access, they will automatically list right here that they've given you access, and you will see what you have access to. Okay, so when you come in here and you look at these incidents, right? If I come into this call right here, now, if I select on this basic incident 1 right here that we've given mutual or automatic aid, right? When I get to basic info 5, this box is going to be here, okay? This is where you can begin. Click this, whichever one of your agency friends are there, you can look at the incidents they've had. You can pull in their FDID number, it'll pull in their state, and it'll pull in their incident number. Now, if you're not an agency friend with them, okay, one of the things that we talked about a little bit ago when we talked about the neighboring agencies is listing this right here. So if these folks are not an agency friend with me, all right, I can come in here, I can copy this, come in, paste it down, right, come down here, select this, and then whatever the incident number is, if I can get the incident number off of, whatever source of information, I can come in there, add the incident number, and now that's going to link those 2 reports together as they go up the food chain into the insurance database. Okay. Any questions, guys? Anything we want to go over before I switch over? Okay. Another thing I want to talk about is unlocking a user. Okay. So we touched on this last time. I want to do a little bit more in depth in here. A user will become locked if they do not access their account over a certain period of time. Okay. So if I come in here, in my settings that I have in my admin module, down here under account settings, I have this set that if they don't come in and they don't sign in with a year, now keep in mind this goes from 30 days up to a year. If they don't sign in, it's going to lock that account, right? If they try and sign in and it tells them their account's locked, well, then a administrator is going to have to come in here and actually manually unlock them, right? So when you come in here, you go to the personnel list, you find that individual that is trying to sign in and can't. When you open up their profile record and you go to the security tab, it's going to tell you right here that they've been locked. Okay, now you don't have their password any longer. You don't have their email for password reset, but you as the admin, you do control locking and unlocking the users, right? This is where, and I'm going to jump back to this subject that we talked about last time about the importance of having multiple admins. This is where you admins can come in. If you guys get locked for whatever reason, this is where you guys can come in and unlock each other. Now, if you remember, I talked about, okay, so if you only have one admin and you get locked, well, you got to contact support. Support's got to send you the LAR form. Once the LAR form gets to you, you have to fill it out. 2 people in your department have to sign it. You have to send it back. They verify it. They come back in there, right? That could be a 2-3 day process. If your account's locked and there's another admin, right, that's as simple as you sign into your account right here, okay? Come down to your admin module, go to the personnel list, pull up that user, go to the security tab, hit unlock, and that account's unlocked, okay? That is a far cry from a 2 or 3 day process. Hopefully demonstrating that drives home the point of why having multiple admins is so good for you guys, right? And you don't even want your users to be putting in, like we talked about last time, you don't want them putting in support tickets. If they're locked as a user, teach them to come to you. You are the local subject matter experts. You guys can do this in your sleep, right? Just come in, click, 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 unlock, everything's good to go, okay? Now, the next thing I want to talk to you guys a little bit about as you guys come in here is let's talk about some common admin reports, okay? At different times, there's going to be different things that you guys are doing where you're going to need to get some information that an admin would have, okay? So let's take a look at these first couple right here, okay? If I come back into my account, I go to my reports module and I type in 1016, right? A lot of what you're looking at right here, if you're an admin, you should probably have a lot of these saved already in your favorites for you guys to access, okay? Now, this right here, This lists all the different personnel reports, right? So any report that you can pull for personnel, you can come in here. Here's your report number. Here's the report name. This is the path you take to find it, right? This is, again, something where you can come in here and say, okay, I need to find a report about insert topic, right? This is where you're going to come in and find it. If I go in there and I look at 1015, right? I come over here. These are going to be a list of reports for incident types, okay? So as you guys are coming in here, this is going to break down the incidents for you. If you guys don't, right? If you don't know about the master list of reports, this will probably be the greatest gift I give you today. 779 is a master list of every report this system is capable of pulling, okay? When you guys come in here and you see this, this is 42 pages of reports that I can pull, okay? This is the report number you're looking at, and hopefully you guys, I'm gonna blow that up just a little bit more, okay? This is the report number over here on the left, the report name, the path, and then nicely over here, Kevin and the reports team have added the footers to the list of this report, which is great because the footers tell you where it's pulling its information from. And 9 times out of 10, if you guys pull a report, you're like, something doesn't jive here, right? Like something's off on this data. If you go down to the bottom of the page on the report you pull, it'll tell you where it's pulling that information from. Go in, look and see, okay, well, it's pulling from here. A common mistake, right? And this is really simple, but yet it drives home this point. A lot of your incident reports will only pull incidents that have been reviewed. So maybe you pull that report and you say, wait a minute, I got 500 incidents, but this report's only showing 475. Well, if you go into your incident grid and you look, go down that footer and it says only reviewed calls. If you go back to the incident grid and you have 25 of them that are either complete or incomplete, well, there's your discrepancy that you found right there, right? Now, that is not to say that reports don't get a mind of their own every now and again, right? Sometimes reports will just start pulling something completely crazy. And then the report team's got to go in there and give them a little dose of act right to get them back to pulling wherever they're at, okay? So it does happen, but this kind of gives you those initial troubleshooting steps of coming in here and taking a look and, seeing what it is that you're looking for, okay? Another thing, and I used to print this out, right? Because to me, I'm just one of them old school guys that loves to have it in my hand. Please remember that this is a dynamic list. As reports are added or as reports are removed, this list gets updated on a regular basis. So if you are like me and you do that, make sure that every couple months you come in here and print out a new one, right? So that that way you're having the most up-to-date information as you go, okay? Now, looking at some of these other reports that I have listed for you, right? And I'm not going to go through every one of these, right? But we pulled these in. We talked about this amongst the training staff, and we said, hey, let's just talk about a couple of different lists here that are very beneficial to your admins. Okay, we talked about that 779. This one will give you a list of all your personnel. This one we get asked about all the time, right? 1621. How do I have a sign up? Is there something that'll give me a sign up sheet? So if I have members coming in or I have employees coming in or whatever that may be, where's there a sign up sheet that I can use to get them squared away? Right? And again, it's always a good practice, right? It is always a good practice to keep your contact information and most importantly, your emergency contact information up to date, okay? God forbid something happened to one of your personnel, which nobody ever wants. That is not the time to come in here and take a look at this and hope that the emergency contact information is correct, okay? There are given reports that you can pull once a year, right? And you can come in here on your personnel list and your contact list. You can pull these up and you can see exactly where they are, okay? Is your current address, is your current phone numbers, is your significant other's phone number, is that up to date? All that information, you can get that, okay? Some of these other things that we're looking at right here, these are your activity codes, okay? We get asked a lot about deleting There is one report in there that will pull on any incident that's been deleted. Here's another one for deleted daily log items. Okay, that's letting you know that those things, you can pull a report and see who has deleted incidents, right? Or who has deleted those daily log items. Okay, and when you're in here, another common thing that we see with reports, all the time, folks will hit up support and they'll say, hey, do you have a report that pulls this, right? Now, again, I'm going back to the fact that our support team is, I love them guys to death. Those folks are fantastic, right? A lot of them have a lot of these reports memorized. So if you come in there and you ask them a question, they might know that, right? But a good practice is to get your people, the old adage of if you give a man a fish, he eats for a day. If you teach him about a fish, he eats for life, right? Well, same thing when looking for reports. If you come in here and you pull that 779 and you look at that master list of reports, now this thing's broken down alphabetically by module. There's no magic report query tool, right? I can't type in and say average response and it'll tell me all the reports that pull it, right? Come in here, duplicate your tab, come down here, maybe go down into the incidents, right? Scroll down through here, get down into incidents, right? And you might come here and you might look at this and say, okay, 1403, right? Just mark this right here to where you stopped. Come over here, look at report 1403, pull it, put your search parameters in there, pull that. Once you create that report, okay, look at it. That might not be what you want. If it's not, come back over to this list and continue scrolling down as you go. Okay. Easy way to find reports. Sometimes it does become time consuming because sometimes you are looking for such a specific data set that you're going to be in here a little bit looking for it. Okay. But this, I can assure you, is the same method that support's using to come in here and find these reports when they're difficult. This is the same method when you reach out to us trainers. This is the same method that we do looking for reports as well. Okay. So learn that process, teach that process to your people, pass it on to them. At the end of the day, you all want the data, right? You need that data. Data rules the day. Learn how to mine that data, and then it's a win for everybody. Okay? Guys, do we have any questions?
James, you're doing a killer job. Very nice job today. So we're tackling the questions as they're coming in. Couple things. One thing we learned, or I learned, and because Mark and I were doing some research on it, a question came in from Ruth about the ability, and again, this is kind of an administrator function, right? And the ability to unarchive occupancies requires the user to have the modify settings, full access to modify settings in the occupancy module. I was banking it was just modify occupancies, but it is indeed modify settings. So thanks to Mark for researching and finding that out for Ruth. And then the only other suggestion I have for the presentation today, as a little bonus for the power users that are on and the administrators, again, time permitting in your presentation, James, to give them a little peek about the beta version 1.0 of the query tool that's out.
Okay. Is this what you're talking about right here, Tom? Modify settings in the occupancy module?
Yeah, let me switch over to your presentation. Yeah, that's exactly right. So
anything
again,
else?
Just to reiterate, as an administrator, if any of your users need to unarchive an occupancy or to have that ability to even, I believe, even see that column, they'll be able to go into advanced search and to reveal the archived occupancies, they have to have the modify settings set to full.
Any other questions before I jump over there and give them a sneak peek of what's to come?
Yeah, I want to mention, we got another question about the presentation. Will it be available? Yes, I forget who asked that question. Maybe it is Jason Anderson. We record all these, Jason, and go to the knowledge base, and all the way at the bottom is a webinars on demand section. All of them are in there, and we also have a YouTube channel that they're available on. Probably will be available Monday sometime.
What Mark's talking about in reference, now the questions, right? We're going to post the questions. I'm going to email them out to you folks like I did last time. right? Same thing. I'll be working on that some today. Tomorrow morning, I'll be working on that as well as rendering the video. If I can get it out to you tomorrow, I will. If not, like Mark said, Monday. But when you come into the emergency reporting knowledge base, when you come all the way down here on the webinars and demand, that's where you're going to find this video. Okay.
James, we got a good question, and I want to have to grab my document that explains it. But in personnel settings, we were having some members that have to change their password very often, others that have not had to do this yet. Have we made an error in our setup? Do you want to tackle that, or do we want to do that one offline with Rick?
Yeah, so is that more referring, Tom, about how often they have to change their password?
Yeah, it looks like it. They said the interval the required change is now 6 months because if you're on commercial, the commercial platform, it's 6 months. And so before, like if you went into account settings, the system would allow you to change that, but you can see that is no longer there with our new, what we call B2C, and bottom line is we dramatically enhanced our security to the system. And part of that is having a default password reset for those on our commercial accounts, and that's 6 months. So you should get a reminder, automated reminder, that you need to change your password every 6 months.
That's I pulled this up to show you guys that that's no longer something that's there. Okay, so what Tom mentioned about, and just to give you guys a little sneak peek into what's coming, okay? Our next virtual Thursday, and I kind of, if you will, stumbled into, I guess I'll be the one presenting for that one as well. For those of you who, if you have the analytics module and you have the BI, okay, when you look in here, like your maintenance module, your occupancy module, your training module, you guys come in here. If you now see this BI basic tab right here, okay, that's Microsoft Business Intelligence. When you come down here and you come into your analytics module, if you have it, it will be listed right here, okay? Microsoft Business Intelligence, that's a way to gather information. If you don't use this tool, I highly, highly suggest you start using this tool. There's a lot of different things. This came out actually about this time last year. And in the year's time that this thing has been here, it is absolutely amazing what Kevin and his team have been able to do. Okay, so you guys can come in here. You can start. These are your filters. This is like a list of things that you're going through. These are the different views that you can look at, right? So that, if you have analytics, get used to using it. One of the reasons I say that is because of this right here. A week ago, this query tool came out. This is kind of a ad hoc reporting type tool, okay? This is where you come in and you develop custom queries. Now, currently right now, it's released to incidents. Eventually, all of these different areas that you're seeing right here, the incident volume, the occupancy, training, if you're an Emphasis account EMS on your maintenance information, eventually it will move to all these modules right here, okay? But for now, this is where you come in, and I'm just going to give you guys a very sneak peek of this, okay? I have to adjust my screen here. If I want to come in and I want to develop my own query, I can come in, and based off of the choices that are available to me in the incident module, right? And again, guys, I'm giving you a very 30,000-foot view here. We're gonna get in depth. Next week, I'll be spending time with Kevin. We're getting up to speed on all the nuances of this, and then we'll be able to give you guys a good presentation in the first of the month as we come in, okay? But you guys can come in. You can start selecting your criteria as you're going through here, okay? Maybe we're looking at shift, okay? Down here, we'll look at incident types, right? Let's pull down just the apparatus, station, and I'm just grabbing a couple of these. Your custom questions that you put in there, right? And these are kind of generic for me, but nonetheless, now once you come in here and you start pulling this up, you can come over here. You can get your results based off of the information you put forward. You can pull kind of your own report, and then you can save that as well, okay? So again, that's getting your beak wet. That's letting you know that this has been introduced. that's letting you know that we will be doing our next virtual Thursday on this specifically. We'll be in here for the hour, giving every piece of information I can give about that. I hope to have Kevin join us on this so that he can be here and he can also answer questions. Give you guys a chance to meet one of the top product owners we have, and the way he handles business and the way he does things. You guys will very much enjoy it if his schedule will permit him to be here with us. So, you guys have any other questions? We've kind of perfectly hit the 1 hour point here. If you have any other
You're right on
questions.
target, James. One thing that we've had a couple questions for is some folks out there with us say do not have BI Basic displaying in their analytics module. That is available in most accounts. It really depends on the tier your account falls under. If you don't see that button on the page, contact your sales rep to see what it takes to get that.
Yeah, for those of you that have it, and I encounter this a lot. A lot of folks have that and don't even realize they have it. Get in the practice of coming here. I promise you, you won't be disappointed. Okay. Greg, Mike, Tom, anybody?
Just two quick things. One, let's see what page you're on. Yeah, you're on that page still. So in analytics, if you guys go and explore the query tool, one, be sure to join James's and if Kevin joins them for that next virtual Thursday, it's going to be awesome. And then in the meantime, if you do decide to explore the query tool, please don't miss that send feedback button. That is your direct line to Kevin and his team. Do not call support for this. Send your feedback there because it's your straight line to what we call our product owner or the product manager for this part of our system. And we know Kevin, he's reading every single one of them. So I just want to point that out. It's easy to miss it amidst all of the other things going on the screen, but just drop a note, hey, we love it, or hey, what about this? What about that? That he wants to hear that. So
and that's a great reminder, Tom, that anytime we release a product, right, even going back looking over here to staffing, when we release these products and we release them in beta, we talked about that last time about how they want to get the bugs worked out of them. When they're in beta, you're going to see that send feedback. Take the time to do that, right? When this first rolls out, this is going directly to the product owner. They can get the changes in there that hopefully they can, whatever's available to them to do, they can get those changes out and get them fixed before they harden down what they're doing. Okay.
And last but not least, in the chat, I am sending everyone a link to our contact page. If you scroll down to this page at the bottom, pick your state, and you'll be able to connect with a rep in your region in the event you would need to upgrade your account to have BI Basic. And so if you're not seeing that in your system, you must have, because I think almost everybody should have BI Basic. So maybe you're an NFIRS only account. There's very few accounts that I don't think, that don't have this. So check with your rep and they'll confirm with you what you would need to do in order to ensure that you have it. Now, the other thing you might want to consider, check with your admin. If you're not the admin, make sure you have permissions to that module too. And David, yes. Yep, Dave has already got his question answered about it's only the incidents module currently. Again, this is as software is continually iterated. Version 1.0 beta will just have the incidents module, but there will be other modules to follow.
And there's not a lot of harm in giving your folks full access to this. They can't alter the data. They can only look at the data in that analytics module. So there's really not a lot of harm giving your folks full access to analytics.
Yep, it's read only. Exactly, James, read only. Yep.
So with that being said, guys, again, thank you. We've had great participation last time. We've had great participation this time. It's awesome to see all you guys here. And before I put this one in the record books, as Mark says, to steal his line from him, thank you guys very much for being here. And most importantly, thank you for being an emergency reporting customer. There's plenty of choices out there, and you choose us, and we hope we lived up to the standard that you guys expect. So thank you very much. You guys stay safe. Have a great day, and we will see you at the next Virtual Thursday.